You know who else it's going to get ugly for? One, Mr. Anthony Fauci. One, Mr. Hunter Biden. You know, I think this scares some people. I think it scares some people, certainly in the mainstream media. Here's the captain of the mainstream media, one Jake Tapper. He sent this out today at 12:35 a.m. Eastern Time. It's weird that he mentions that. They're all like angry because the president stays up late. The president decreed that he was nullifying President Biden's preemptive pardons of members of the January 6th committee, an assertion of a power the Constitution does not bestow. Of course, he didn't actually say that he's making his position clear, right? But if we go back to the soundbite, didn't he actually say it's going to be up to a judge to decide this? Here's the reporter asking about the auto signs and whether or not, they're really going to be, and listen to what he says. This is important because you see what the media is writing. The captain of the mainstream media, right? Jake Tapper, your favorite. I'm teasing. And then you see what the president actually said.
To follow up on the Biden auto pen, are those executive orders, those words from the president now null and void?
Well, I think so. It's not my decision that we have to accord. But I would say that they're null and void because I'm sure Biden didn't have any idea that it was taking place. And somebody was using an auto pen to sign off and to give pardons to, as an example, this is one example, but the J6 unselect committee.
Okay, so, he's joking. For 4 years, you had an auto sign there. You didn't really know who was running the show. It's something, actually, I was reading in Matt Taibbi's newsletter today, which was a good little, let me just share with you what he said, because I thought this was rather telling, rather interesting. Matt Taibbi, he has like a Substack newsletter. He is a reporter over on, just Substack, I should say. He used to be at Rolling Stone. And he said, the thing is that back in the Obama day, this is what I was telling you earlier, guys, the coverage of the auto pen was an issue back then. Federal officials had long been anxious about its use, fearing exactly this sort of challenge to the legitimacy of White House documents. That makes coverage today describing the auto pen as ordinarily uncontroversial odd. So they're going to sit there and say, oh, this has never been done before. This is so terrible. And the point is that actually, this has always been controversial. It's never been cool. Like I was telling you earlier, right? George Bush actually created it, but he didn't use it. He didn't believe that he should use it. He never utilized an auto pen. That's pretty important. In fact, in one case, I'm quoting, he flew through the night to get to the White House in time to sign the Terry Schiavo bill. Article 1, Section 7 of the Constitution describes how bills must be presented to the president. And it means every bill must physically be presented to the president. So this whole auto sign thing, this doesn't really fly. And that means that, Tapper can sit there and say, well, he doesn't get the constitutional power. And Trump can sit here and say, these pardons are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect. And what this is going to come down to is the courts. Okay, so that's where it goes from here on out. It's going to go to the courts. And I just say, you know what? I wish them all luck. You know who I really wish a whole bunch of luck to? But no, I don't. I'm just kidding. That would be one Anthony Fauci. Anthony Fauci, who I'm realizing was one bad dude, right? Well, I think we all knew it. But I'm just saying, this is not looking good. When you have the New York Times, even the New York Times coming out and saying in a column now that scientists badly misled the public on COVID-19 origins. Remember that one, guys? Oh boy, I did a lot of reporting on that. I don't know how much you were able to see actually back in the day, but I'll tell you, that was pretty bad because I knew in February of 2020 they had come from a Wuhan lab. I had sources within I guess you could call it the deep state, right? Who had told me that this came from the Wuhan lab. They were pretty convinced of that. They didn't buy the wet market theory, but that it wasn't necessarily deliberate. It was just really, a shoddy operation. To which I've always said, why were we giving money vis-a-vis that NGO health thing, right? Why were we giving any money even if it was only 600 grand that Fauci still won't admit to, why were we giving them anything if we knew it was so shoddy? You know how we knew it was shoddy? Because the lab itself had been on TV in China, and the Taiwanese have actually found this tape, and I've run it on this program actually before, and they showed how the woman who ran that lab was so proud of all her scientists because somehow they never, ever, ever wore gloves. Like they would just, deal with these bats, and they were like fearless, and this was considered a badge of honor. And I'd be like, wait a second, we're giving money to them and they don't even wear their gloves? Are you kidding me? They're not following the proper scientific protocol. So why would we want anything to do with any of the people there? Why would we be, apparently we had a whole bunch of intel ops that were there, and somehow, I don't know, they kind of completely glossed over the fact that nobody was taking the necessary safety protocols. So anyway, what wound up happening is 3 people got sick from that Wuhan lab, and they wound up in the emergency room with all of the symptoms that one would have for this. And the media just took it, right? From Anthony Fauci and from the CDC, everybody, like Department of Energy, CIA, everybody was saying the same exact thing, that this was coming from a wet market. And if you dared to suggest otherwise, well, you know what happened. I mean, it was game over. It was game over. And so now we have learned that, when it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And so in this particular case, it was. You better believe it was the actual lab. And yet Fauci got up there and lied to Congress. Remember the exchanges between him and Rand Paul? So I'm wondering if now Fauci loses his pardon too. Because if the auto signatures are all null and void, then it seems like you could go after him too. And I would say even if somebody's going to give him that pardon, which nobody should, but even if, you still ought to haul him right up there and ask all the questions, because as I said, if you've been pardoned, fine, you've been pardoned, but there's ways to still go after you civilly, and there are ways to go after you with states. And so it doesn't mean you're fully in the clear. And I think we need to get that all cleared up, don't you? I mean, look, people went through a lot. The people went through a lot. I mean, they shut down businesses. There are businesses that have still not recovered because of one Anthony Fauci. Senator Eric Schmidt was on my friend Benny's show recently, and he said, we got to haul him back in. This was before the auto signature thing being declared null and void. This is, I want to show you Senator Schmidt from Missouri saying, he owes everybody an explanation.
They were telling people you couldn't see a loved one when they were dying. You couldn't see your family during Christmas. This was insane, totally insane. And so Fauci's got a lot to answer to. And by the way, just because he's gotten the pardon, it doesn't mean he can't be compelled to testify, and he can't take the Fifth Amendment because he can't be prosecuted. So let's lay it all out there, and let's bring Fauci back in.
Yeah, let's. Credit to Benny for that one. Thank you. Let's. Right? I mean, the jig is up. Little reference to St. Patrick's Day to go with my green there. I mean, when even the New York Times is on to you, I'm sorry. Fauci has to explain more of what went down. And we've got every single 3-letter agency now coming out and saying, yep, it came from China, it came from China, it came from China. So that was a cover-up operation as well. And I'm telling you something, guys, you know what? When you sit there and you cover things up and you don't allow people to explore the truth, or even, find the truth, but even explore it, right? Like, you're not even allowed to talk about certain things, like that Hunter Biden laptop that we were not allowed to talk to. I'm living proof of it, right? Shared an article I shouldn't have, paid a price. Wow. When you are shutting down an opportunity for people to speak candidly, that is a huge problem. And that's where we were. You want to talk about the Gestapo. You want to talk about a totalitarian government approach. That's what we lived through for 4 years. And now it's all going to get blown wide out into the open. Oh, and here's another headline coming to us just now. Elon Musk tweeting this one out. 12 biolabs have been refused funding by Congress. So that's a bit of a, F you, I guess, if you would, to one Anthony Fauci, but I think this has to go a whole lot further. I think it will. I think it will. You know, you've had 4 years on the sidelines there, some really smart folks. Stephen Miller's one of them, some smart attorneys over at Heritage. You know, I always liked Project 2025. I always thought it was really smart. Donald Trump was like, well, this isn't really me, but they had some good ideas. And I think there are a lot of people there that have done some really strong research, and a lot of that is going to come to fruition right now. I want to get to the judge slapping one Fannie Willis. Oh my goodness, Fannie getting slapped with a $54,000 fine. But before we do, just a heads up to our favorite folks over at American Heart for Gold. You can get up to $15,000 right now in free silver. If you haven't done this, you've really got to take a look. Go to trishlovesgold.com today. Trish Loves Gold has a nice ring to it, especially on this St. Patrick's Day. You know, the whole leprechaun story and all that good stuff. Anyway, go check them out. You can text my name as well to get more information about the $15,000 worth of free silver. Just text Trish, T-R-I-S-H, to 65532 or call them at 1-844-495-1115, up to $15K worth of free silver with qualifying gold purchases.